Good evening, this is Tim Johnson, and the Brattleboro Select Board is next here on BCTV. Among the items that the board is discussing as Water and Sewer Commissioners, an update on the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, plus an environmental review public hearing for a finding of no significant impact on the proposal to do a gravity sewer line over Black Mountain Road, which would eliminate a pump station in that region, plus an update on the finances of the wastewater treatment plant upgrade. The monthly financial report, discussion of the property assessed clean energy program that was approved at representative town meeting earlier this year. A resolution is requested in support of the Wyndham-Windsor Housing Trust VCDP Scattered Site Grant. I'll let the board explain that to you when it comes up. The Washington Street Retaining Wall project has a grant which the board needs to accept, a grant proposal to be accepted on a Bulletproof Vest Partnership grant for the police department, a Homeland Security Grant Program Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Grant application is up for the board's support, a acceptance of a Vermont Department of Corrections grant for the Brattleboro Community Justice Center, a pair of ordinance amendments dealing with removal of handicap parking spaces near the Linden Street area, plus a second reading and public hearing on dealing with parking restrictions near Elliott Street, appointment of a tax collector, and an announcement of a committee vacancy. All that and more coming up. The Brattleboro Select Board is next here on BCTV.
Good evening. We're going to convene the regular meeting of the Brattleboro Select Board for October 15th, 2013. Has the meeting been warned?
Yes, it has.
Super. John's laughing. As everybody can see, there are only 3 members of the Select Board here tonight. We're 2 short, which means that when there's a vote, it has to be approved by 3 of us, or it fails. So hopefully we won't have that. We won't have that happen.
Pressure's on.
The pressure is on for all of us. Does anyone else on the Select Board have any comments or committee reports?
No, I don't think so. I'm good.
John, perfect. What we're going to do is start with public participation, and if there's any...
We have
Jan?
minutes?
Oh, so we have to do the minutes, yes. Sorry about that, I skipped over that. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 30th and October 1st meeting?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes for October 1st and September 30th are approved. Now we'll have public participation. If there's anyone in the audience... Oh, I'm sorry. Patrick wants to say something.
Well, do you have any remarks?
No, I don't have any remarks.
No.
Does Patrick have remarks?
I do, in fact. Thank you.
She's trying to get this meeting over
I
by
know.
6:30.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. We got a regular
By the
time to get
6th inning.
on. I would like to take just a minute and express my sincere appreciation to 2 different entities. As many of you are probably already aware, we had one of the busiest weekends of the year this last weekend. And when we get that much tourist traffic into our community, as we all know, the roads can get a little congested. And so heading into the weekend, we had 2 real priorities for trying to mitigate the impact of that. And the first one was we wanted to try and get the Elm Street Bridge opened. And I know the folks at the Department of Public Works worked awfully hard and were able to get that bridge open by midday on Friday. That was of great support to moving traffic around the Main Street area. And so I'm very thankful to them. Secondly, it was the plan of PCL, the construction firm that's working on I-91 Bridge, to have both lanes of 91, both directions of 91, reduced to one lane. And so Chief Mike Bacassi and I went out on Thursday and met with them, and they were very receptive to our request. And thankfully, by the afternoon of Friday, both lanes of traffic on I-91 were opened, and we were very appreciative of the fact that they heard our concerns and they were able to make adjustments to their development plan. So thank you to DPW and thank you to PCL.
There's a little crying involved, wasn't it?
Okay, now we're going to move on to public participation, and this is time for anyone in the audience who is not here to talk about something that's on the agenda to say whatever you want. You have 2 minutes, and all we ask is that you can... Well, you can go shorter than that. You can come to the microphone and just state your name so the public can hear you.
Bob Leach. I've only got 2 minutes. All right. Do my best. Last big rainstorm we had here in Brattleboro, water wound up coming down Washington Street, Canal Street, going through the parking lot at Champ's Restaurant, and down through my driveway, and ultimately putting about 4 foot of water in my cellar. All right. Now, history-wise, I've owned that property for over 30 years. I have never had a problem with water in the cellar at that house until the last couple of years. So something has changed. To give you more detail, that particular storm and a couple of previous storms that were severe, the water would come down Canal Street and Washington Street converge, and during the last storm there was over 6 inches of water, river, going through Champ's Restaurant, forming a huge lake in the back of that parking lot, funneling down through my driveway. The lake that was created wound up, my particular house is a stacked stone cellar, so it's pretty porous. The water that came up close to the house went right through that stacked stone, creating a few sinkholes right close to the house, and it also overflowed. The bulkhead door came down the stairs. I had about 4 foot of water in my cellar. That water, I have a drain down there in the basement. The drain is primarily set up to catch problems with the washers. It's a 4-inch drain. It took all the water out of the cellar and put it into your sewage treatment system. I know you don't like stormwater in the sewer treatment system, but that's where it went. The water went through my driveway, across Brook Street. The only thing that prevented Brook Street from being on Elm Street was there was a huge brush pile over the bank there that slowed the water down enough so it didn't erode away Brook Street. It went down through, took out part of CMI's driveway and went into that pond down there and then ultimately into the creek. This is obviously some kind of change in the way storm drain water is flowing down there. I noticed that the storm drain in the back of that parking lot, even in the last storm, had water standing on top of it. It wasn't taking very much. A couple of other storm drains along Canal Street and Bird Street were not taking water. They had puddles on top of them. That wasn't a very big storm we had, last week. So it just adds to it. Something has changed in the system, and I don't know how to get it fixed. I have tried to call people with the town committees or with the town functions, and I don't know what to tell you, or I didn't get any phone calls returned. I don't know where to go. Something has to be done to fix this, or the next time there's a good chance that Brook Street is going to be an Elm Street, not to mention the problem in my basement. I lost, or my tenants lost, at least 2 dryers and 1 washing machine. They didn't survive the flood when the water drained down, and they all dried out. My 2 washing machines worked and 1 dryer worked. I don't know about the other 2 dryers for sure yet, but I know one of the washing machines didn't. Any questions?
Well, as luck would have it, you
I
have
know.
the Director of Public Works is here at this meeting and just heard everything that you said, so I'm assuming that somebody,
Steve, is there anything you can add, or?
yeah.
Oh,
There you go.
good.
I see him taking notes back.
Before we throw Steve right at it, there's a couple of things I would like to point out. And the first one is that in some of the recent storms, there's been quite a deluge. I remember the storm that happened on a Thursday a couple of weeks back. The town received roughly 5 inches of rain in an hour and a half. And that sort of volume is capable of exceeding the capacity of our system, even when it's functioning and functioning well. And there were numerous instances of damage to private property in that storm event as a result. It's unfortunate, but it's our responsibility to make sure that our systems are operative, and I'm not aware at this point in time of any of our systems not functioning. That's not to say that they cannot be exceeded by acts of God, but I am not aware at this time of any of our systems not functioning at all.
I would buy that, except for the fact that previously, there was at least 3 storms previous to that were not near that bad. And I wound up with water up to about 3-4 inches in my cellar. And it was the same thing. Those storm drains in that area did not take the water that they have been taking in the past. I mean, I got 30 years of history, not a problem, and all of a sudden I got a problem.
Yeah. Now, Steve, do you want to talk about this now, or do you want to just have a conversation later between the two of you?
Yeah, I just would like to address it briefly.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, by the way.
Just so you know, Mr.
Leach. Yep.
I do have a phone message from him. I haven't returned his call yet. Hannah has talked to him several times, and this storm was really unusual. I know, the post office is a good indicator where that was under a lot of water. DMI actually did some improvements to that area of Bird Street, and it washed out the ravine right there off of Brook Street and Bird Street. It couldn't handle the water, and that's been in place for quite a few years. Also, Line Motorsports, we had that problem. We had the problem at Elm Street, and all I can say is that now these storms are larger, they're bigger, there's more volume, and as Patrick had stated, our system is antiquated. When your house was built, that parking lot wasn't there for the restaurant. There's a lot more covered area where the water can't penetrate and absorb in. So this is something, each year we have discussions about it during the budget with drainage and such. Some of the catch basins that are taking water right now could quite possibly still, they could have been filled up with material.
That's what I'm wondering.
And so we're going to be out cleaning drains also, but we've been kind of catching up with fires, trying to get Elm Street open, and so, we're not trying to avoid the problem. We're doing what we can. We do put a certain amount of money aside to replace drainage each year.
Now, is that storm drain on that parking lot, would that fall into your purview?
It probably isn't even ours. It's probably a private drain. I don't know. We have to look at it.
It ties into the storm drain system, but I don't know.
I don't either. So it's something, I'll be able to meet up with you and discuss this further, but just wanted to give a little explanation on some of the things we're confronted with here. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
We use up the 2 minutes?
Is there anyone else that's not here? Oh, Tim is here. Tim?
It's media night. Do you have a score?
Scoreless in the 6th.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, in case you don't know, or for the community members who don't know, I'm Tim Johnson from WTSA, and I wanted to take this opportunity to talk community members into buying a ticket for Saturday's Make-A-Wish Benefit Celebrity Waiter Dinner. Since 2 members of your board are going to be celebrity waiters and will be trying to tell me how to do my job, so that'll be fun. Again, the tickets are available, $50 each, and they would like to get a head count prior to starting the preparations for the meal. So if you could give a call to either Barb Harris or Polly Curdy, both in Brattleboro. They would be more than willing to accept your money, and a lot of children in need would be willing to accept your support as well.
It's a
So,
great event. It's
It
a great
really
event.
is.
It really is. Yep.
The board members aforementioned, as I would expect, both know how to wait.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, we do too.
Oh, yes. So again, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, John and I are going to be waiters, and so John, Tim, and I will be competing for tips.
That's right.
So
Who gets the tips?
Make a
they
wish.
make a wish. So people take
Sometimes.
pity on us.
That's right.
It's core.
So fun to be on BCTV.
I know, this is unusual for
I
you
know.
to be in front of the mic.
I know. My name is Cora Trowbridge. I'm Executive Director of BCTV. Hello, viewers, wherever you are. I just wanted to take this opportunity. We had our annual meeting last week where, among other things, we acknowledged our volunteer producers, and those are the volunteers who you see all the time here who make BCTV work. And there was one person missing from the room last night when we were awarding and giving her the Producer of the Year award, and that is Maria Dominguez, who's here tonight, as she is every single select board meeting, and she's wondering, what am I talking
Look at
about?
she's turning around.
Can you
Can you get a close-up of Maria?
She produces at least one program per week for Channel 8. She's here at every single select board meeting, every live event, the library lectures, First Wednesday lectures, and people in the community know her, and I know you all appreciate what she does to make BCTV what it is for the Brattleboro area, and I just wanted to publicly acknowledge her. So thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you. Stop being so shy. Terrific.
Yay.
I know. Very good.
Next year, you'll probably go to the recognition because it's less public there than it just was. So.
I do what I have to do.
Is there anyone else that's in the public that wants to talk about something not on the agenda? Okay, we're going to move on to Water and Sewer Commissioners, and I will accept a motion for us to convene as Water and Sewer Commissioners.
So moved. There you go.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are Water and Sewer Commissioners. So we've got Steve Barrett, and we have Hannah, and they have a guest who they will introduce. So
We
we'll
also
let you.
have Lynette Whitney from Agency of Natural Resources. And so
First, we're going to do the wastewater treatment.
tonight we do the first thing we'll do is the wastewater treatment plant, and then we'll have a hearing with Annette right after that. So she decided to join us right from the get-go as Underwater Sewer Commissioners. So all set?
We're ready.
Okay. The wastewater treatment plant project, we continue to work on some of the different components at the plant to get them up to speed. The micro turbine, that's something that it has been operating, so that's generating electricity, which is exciting. The treatment plant is also taking septic from the haulers, which is an income revenue, which is exciting. The last Tuesday, I believe it was, we had our 102nd job meeting. So the job has gone on for some time, and so one of the things we're trying to do is close this job out, and we're trying to get a final date when the project will be closed out, and I'm going to be working with the town manager on that to come up with actually a date is what we're looking for from the contractor to close this project out. There is in your books, there is some discussion about a change order number 10. John Connor, he reviewed it, I reviewed it, and Patrick. Change order 10 is actually a savings. It's I believe it's approximately $84,000 savings, and that needed to be done before we actually go to our next pay rec. So there'll be another pay rec. The project is over by quite a bit of time. we hope to get some conclusion this fall. So that's the update. It's the plant's running well. There's just, we want the project over with, and so that's our emphasis.
It's time to put this one to bed.
Yes.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell, there were a couple of dates in here, and I didn't try to do the math to figure out what 130% as of September 30th meant, but at what was the date the construction was supposed to be done at the $1,500 per day?
Originally, right now, the date on the table is in last February.
Last
Okay?
February.
Last February.
So since then, it's been
Since that
$1,500
time,
a day.
yeah, and there's been no authorization for extension of the contract. So
There
those-
were other authorizations along the way for additional
That's-
time
that's
and some of
correct.
the change orders.
That's
Right.
correct, and some of those were, all the days that were approved by the Water and Sewer Commissioners. And some of them came along with change orders,
Yeah.
so a particular element that might take more time, they requested more days. So those were added, but basically, we're talking since last February. So there will, we're gonna have to come to an end of this project, and then we will be talking about liquidated damages.
And
We're
that
talking
could be
about-
substantial.
That's right, and other costs that associated for
Additional engineering costs.
That's right.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we'll be getting together to talk about.
Just a quick update, Madam Chairman. Boston 1, Detroit 0.
Thank you.
Meetings are looking.
Okay, so liquidated damage, did we cover that? Hannah, why don't you go over the Spring Tree pump station? This is good news.
The Spring Tree pump station was an upgrade as part of the wastewater treatment plant. It's an important facility within our utilities. It takes all of the wastewater off of Putney Road and pumps it up to our wastewater treatment facility. The project is substantially complete at this point in time, and 99% of the construction contract value has been completed. The remaining work is submittals, paperwork, that kind of thing, and the Sherbon Consolidated is actively working to get those submitted to the engineer. Anything else, Shad?
No, that's it. I mean, that project really went well. It really did. And it was really any additional cost on that, there's a 5% contingency on that project, and we
Less than
based-
2% has been
Less than 2%.
spent.
And that was for concrete work that we really didn't know what it would look like until we got it exposed. So I think the project went really well.
This is just a quick question, and it may not have anything to do with that station. The Marina Restaurant, does that pump into there?
It actually gravity feeds into the gravity line, and then there's a force line that no one's connected to that pumps it over the hill
Oh,
up to near the substation, south of the Veterans Bridge.
oh, okay.
So,
There was just an odor down there the other day, and I'm thinking, wow.
there could be times where that
Wondering
pump
if-
station would emit odors. It does
Okay.
have a ventilation system, and if there's
Right.
components in there that,
Yeah.
every once in a while, there's an air exchange. There is a filter system on that also,
Right.
but then in some cases, depending on, how bad it is.
Oh, yeah, no, and I just couldn't tell if it was their problem or, something at the substation.
Yep.
So.
Before we move on, are you done with Spring Tree?
Yes, we are.
Because we want to do a motion to accept that change order.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
400, so I will read it
Did you want to speak to that?
and see if,
Sorry, I missed that in the administrative report.
Yeah, it's just, and I'll just go over it briefly. There was a dedication plaque that was supposed to go onto that pump station, and we didn't feel that was really necessary. There's a dedication plaque at the wastewater treatment plant that covers all the pump stations and the facility, so it's a decrease of $451.52, and we're asking that you approve that decrease in the project,
so,
elimination of the plaque.
perfect. So I will accept a motion to approve a change order in the amount of negative $451.52, and to authorize the town manager to sign future change orders associated with this expense.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
And the last item on that update is about Black Mountain Pump Station, but we're kind of going to go over it on the next item. But to be to be real brief about it, the Black Mountain Pump Station, we are in the process of a final design for that, which I'm going to go over. And so,
And the one thing before you go, and maybe you'll explain this in the public hearing, but it might be helpful for people watching to understand why we're going to go into a public hearing. So I don't know if someone wants to explain
yep.
that or.
Okay. Okay, so the next item on the, this is where we all get together here. Lynette Whitney from A&R is here. She is actually going to open up a public hearing. I'm going to give you a brief outline of the Black Mountain Pump Station. To really simplify it, the original intent was to rebuild a pump station at Black Mountain Road that pumps wastewater from the area of where the Mountain Home Park is, and it pumps it over I-91 bridge and gravity feeds to Black Mountain Road. What this project calls for, and that's what when we looked at all our permits and went to the state to have them review everything, that's what we proposed. Along the way, we came up with a design that we feel, and now has been verified, that we can do a direct drill and put a new gravity line in and replace the pump station forever. So what this is going to be a hearing, and it's called the Finding of No Significant Impact, better known as a FONSI. And so we'll open the hearing after I give a little brief description, and then, so that's what this is about. It's basically a permit, and it's staying within compliance with the permits.
And so people know that it also eliminates a lot of maintenance down the road.
Yep.
A lot of parts that don't need to be replaced. So that's the reason we're going this route.
Yeah, it's huge. And that's basically what my outline is. I'll just kind of go over it real briefly. That pump station was originally constructed in 1976 and has been in operation since that time, with only replacing pumps, and most of the components are still there. The building's there, everything else. So it's been maintained pretty well. And it has been in service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week from that time. So again, just to explain, right now that pump station pumps through a 6-inch line the wastewater that takes all of the SIT and the homes that are on Black Mountain Road and pumps it over. It's actually connected to the bridge, the overpass of I-91, and then it gravity feeds on Black Mountain Road. The original design, the reason we got into the design, because that original pump station was so old, it was 1976, and it made sense to upgrade that along with Springtree at the time when we did our upgrade. So it was submitted as a project that needed to be done. And so there was an environmental impact review of the Black Mountain Pump Station at that time, and it was covered under the findings of no significant impacts as part of a comprehensive upgrade. The hearing tonight is to amend what is better called as the FONSI for the Black Mountain Road Gravity Sewer Project, as opposed to the pump station upgrade. The pump station will be eliminated, and that will save electrical costs. That'll save replacement costs. We've just seen a pump station that was close to $800,000. In 20 years, those pump stations need to be upgraded again. It'll eliminate those future costs forever. So it's a pretty big savings. The savings don't show up right off, but they do in time. And we're always going to own a pump station. We're always going to own the wastewater lines. So that's why it's important. The new project calls for installation of 1,250 feet of new sewer pipe. 600 feet of that pipe is going to be direct drilled underneath I-91, and the other 650 so feet will be through digging a trench and connecting the pipes. The pipe will come across over by the VFW, and then it will be installed into our line on Black Mountain Road itself. And that pretty much gives you an oversight. And now I'll let Lynette open up the hearing.
Hi, my name is Lynette Whitney. I work for the Agency of Natural Resources, Department of Environmental Conservation, Facilities Engineering Division.
That's a long...
It is.
What's the acronym for that? Not fancy.
My job is with the Clean Water State Revolving Fund program, and this hearing is part of our environmental review procedures that are an agreement between the Department of Environmental Conservation and the US EPA to be able to do the loan program the way that we do it. So I would like to, at this time, open the hearing for the finding of no significant impact and take any public comments that you may have. Are there any public comments?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Drilling a tunnel under the interstate.
That's
Drilling a tunnel under the interstate.
yeah.
So the purpose of the hearing is to look at the environmental impacts of the project,
For what project?
of the Black Mountain Sewer Project.
Okay, yeah.
So it's replacing a pump station with a pipe. It's similar to an Act 250 hearing. The criteria are similar. So, yeah, with that.
Well, this is a good thing, man.
Spurs any questions or
You know,
comments?
Yeah, it's actually, the project will actually take place this spring and summer. We hope to have the project completed. So it's
I don't-
pretty exciting to.
Yeah, I don't know if
yeah.
this is for Lynette or Steve. So 91 will not be dug up.
That's right.
So it's just going to be drilled underneath it.
Yep.
And so it doesn't interfere with traffic and.
That's the beauty of the
I know.
trenchless technology.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Well, I would only like to say that I, for one, would like to thank both the Department of Public Works and the Wastewater Treatment Plant Oversight Committee, and in fact our good folks over at Hoyle and Tanner and Associates, for being mindful of the possibilities of gravity systems, because they really do save municipalities a considerable amount of money in the long run. And so thank you for being mindful and open and keeping your eyes on that, and for bringing this idea forward.
I'd just like to say the input for this actually came from an employee. Our general supervisor, Skip Fletcher, who was familiar with this technology because we had a water break and we had to replace a main on Putney Road, and he's the one that really pushed this idea. So it's nice
Go
that the
Skip.
employees participated and, pushed this type of project.
Didn't we used to have a program where we?
Yeah, give them $10.
Yeah. So Lynette, is that all that you're
Well,
required to do?
if
it?
there's no comments, then we can close the hearing. So, yes, there's no comments, then we can close the hearing. Thank you.
Still 1-0.
Now, what happens, does the state do anything further, or is that all?
We'll publish a document and post it on our website. There's an additional 30-day public comment period in case anyone does develop comments. There's very infrequent comments on any of our projects.
So we have no worries that this will happen in the spring?
Most of the comments, even if we do get them, are able to be resolved successfully. So.
Good.
So we've done all our formalities and all our due diligence.
It'd be different if we were, if they were digging with excavators right through an area, that'd have a huge environmental impact.
Yes.
And this, with the direct
I know, the
drilling and a
systems-
limited amount of digging, it makes it much easier.
Pretty neat.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on. You folks are set, right?
Yep.
We're going to move on to new business, and first up, Jan.
We're still 11 tour commissioners.
Oh, yes.
And we're minus
Oh.
a member.
Yeah, we can't get out of water and sewer commissioners.
We can't?
Yeah, we need 3 to vote,
Yeah, we need 3 to vote.
Huh.
and you all have to agree.
What if we don't?
So,
So we're not just going to sit
We'll be
here?
commissioners forever.
can
No.
we talk about something else while we're water and sewer commissioners, or is that not legal?
We can let John.
They can,
Sure you can.
All right, we'll move on. John, this will be exciting because you'll get to talk to the water and sewer commissioners about the
Do you want to
monthly
do
financial reports.
financial
Yeah, we're
report?
getting
Still in that far, so.
yeah,
What's that? Okay, financial report.
we're getting that we can do it.
Water and sewer.
Oh, okay, we can do the water and sewer
Yeah.
financial report. And in the packet is a spreadsheet, and it identifies the funding sources and uses for the project. And if you go to the very bottom of the last column, You can see that the total funding that we've provided for this project so far is $31.6 million. $375,600 is from grants. $31,231 is from loans. And we were authorized to borrow up to $32.8 million. So we have additional debt capacity of $1,568,000 that we can still go out and borrow. And we probably will for the Black Mountain gravity line. And then finally, we've drawn down to date $29.9 million roughly in drawdowns from those funding sources, and leaving us a balance of $1,719,000. So that's kind of the financial picture of the wastewater project at this point in time.
So we're in good shape on that.
We're in pretty good shape.
Pretty
I
good
think.
shape. And not everything has been finalized yet, so.
Right. I think we should, from the current funding sources, we should have enough to finish, whatever Steve has
Yeah.
on the project with PC construction.
Yeah.
And then we have another $1.5 million that we're authorized to borrow, which we hoping to get through the Clean Water Fund and use that to do the Black Mountain line.
Yep.
Does anyone in the public have any questions about the water and sewer issue?
I just want to point out that, David, while you were gone, we could not get out of the water and sewer.
We were stuck in
We
sewer.
were stuck in water and sewer while you were gone.
Good thing it was raining,
We're still commissioners under that.
and I'm glad the sewers worked.
Yes. All right, so now we can move out of water and sewer commissioner, so we can move on to John O'Connor's next report. Does- All those in favor?
Aye. I
Anyone opposed?
should have said
Nope.
no.
We are no longer water and sewer commissioners. And we'll go on to the monthly financial report.
All right, Kate, thank you. As of the end of September, we're 25% of the way through the fiscal year. And the general fund expenditures were coming in at 27.7%, a little higher than the 25. And part of the reason for that is there's a couple of one-time payments that are included in these first 3 months. And if we adjust those on a prorated basis, the general fund expenditures would be at 26%. So really very close to where we expect to be. Utilities expenditures were at 23.3%, and parking expenditures were at 19.4% of their budget as of the end of September. Fire and Police Facilities Fund is included there, and you can see that the year-to-date expenditures are $20,374. There's a loan report included with all of the town's various loans, and there's a total outstanding balance of $4,140,000 roughly. Program income report, this is income that, monies that we have available to loan or grant for various projects, and it has a balance of $457,211. Also included is the grant report. We have 41 active grants, 1 grant pending closure, and 14 grants in the application process, and they're all identified. And then finally, David asked me to put together some information on delinquent taxes, and there's a graph at the end of all the financial reports that shows our delinquent taxes as of August 31st over the past 10 years. And you can see how they fluctuated from a high of $580,998 in 2009, all the way down to $303,622 in 2005. So even though they increased this past year, when we talked about that last time, when I mentioned the delinquent taxes, and it did jump from 2012, but it's still kind of in the range of norm where we average out to be. So that concludes the financial report.
Does anyone have any questions?
For a change, no. You taught me well.
Good.
I have a question, because I've been watching the CNN countdown to default clock. Does any of that affect us in any way?
Any federal funds that we would be getting, it may, Kate. It's, at this point, we haven't seen that yet, but there certainly is the potential for you know, the federal funds to be reduced and available to the state or to the town directly.
Right, because I know now there's one, when I left to come here, there's one rating agency that's put us on the, you know, watch list to downgrade the country, not the,
Federal.
yeah, so I don't know if any of that stuff, because I know it filters down to individuals, whether you have a retirement account or things like
Right.
that.
What it probably would do, it has some trickle-down effect in terms of increasing interest rates for borrowing. And so, you know, with something like our police fire facility, the interest rate on that may go up if, you know, if we get into this kind of default situation.
It's
So
a
there
wait-
could be an impact on the town, definitely.
Okay, Patrick.
Yes, although not exactly the debt ceiling limit, the federal government shutdown is affecting a variety of projects that the town is undertaking at the moment. One being, for example, the police and fire facility. As you know, we are in the process of doing an environmental review of the property behind Central Station, and that process cannot move forward until such time as the EPA opens their doors and begins their work again. So there are probably a variety of other projects like that that we're, you know, not seriously hurt by, but they're certainly affected by.
Yeah. One other specific example, the Energy Committee is developing a report on the town's energy use, and the Federal Energy Department, one of the employees was helping format that report and put the information together. She can't go to work. She has all the information, and hopefully we'll have it by the time we need to be doing budget work. But again, she can't go to work, so we can't get a report.
Sad state of affairs.
Does anyone in the public have any questions about the monthly financial report? Is everybody on the board all set?
I'm good.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Now we will move on to the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, otherwise known as PACE. And Patrick's going to take over.
Well, thank you, Kate. We wanted this to be on the agenda tonight for a couple of reasons. As folks will recall, back in March of this year, town meeting members voted to establish a PACE district. PACE participation with communities was originally designed to be managed by VEIC, which is a part of Efficiency Vermont. There have been some communities that have voted on and accepted the program guidelines that VEIC has put forward. Brattleboro has not, and so wanted to take a few minutes to describe for the board and for the public at home what some of the concerns we have are, and over the process of doing our due diligence on this program. So I've asked Robert Fisher to be here, and I know John O'Connor's here. We've had some lengthy discussions on the nature of the program guidelines that VEIC has put forward for PACE. We've had some substantive concerns in terms of language in the program guidelines that speaks of the town bonding, whereas towns do not bond, the state of Vermont bonds. There is some potentially confusing language as it relates to upon whose books should these loans be carried, and whether they should be on the books of the town or not. Certainly the town attorney and a finance director have some strong opinions about that, which they can speak to. And then just some of the ways in which the program guidelines discuss how the program will work seem to be inconsistent with our general practices. So we are working to resolve these matters, speaking to other communities that have chosen to go ahead with participation with the language as it has been written. But we're also in contact with them and their attorneys and with our auditors to try and resolve these issues so that there may potentially be a future for Brattleboro's participation. But I'd like to turn it over to Robert Fisher, and maybe he can talk to a little bit about the memo that he included in the board packet.
Thank you. With regard to the PACE program, I just want to preface this by a lot of what we have concerns over are details. Some are big details, some are small details, but at this point, without full answers to these, it has been my recommendation and John O'Connor's recommendation not to have the board sign on to all of the program guidelines until we get these answers. John is working with our auditors to try to get those issues resolved. I'll be contacted. There are a good list of 10, I don't know the exact number, 10 or 12 other towns that have adopted these guidelines. And these guidelines with regard to the VEIC are a set of documents that they've tried to make fairly generic to apply to all towns. Some of the language in there we have taken issue with and tried to suggest modifications to the language in those documents. We've had phone conferences with VEIC and their representatives to try to change those, but since it's a program that goes across many towns, they're somewhat reluctant to change their form documents on it. The town does have the ability at any time to run this program on its own. That is not the way it was advertised for town meeting. The idea was that, well, let me back up. The town could go out and borrow money or have bonds to raise a pool of money to do these types of improvements. The town then could hire people who are underwriters of these loans to do the loan applications, all that sort of stuff. That was not the way it was advertised to the town because the town, one, is not in that business of essentially being a bank or a loan officer. And so the idea was that the town would contract with VEIC, let VEIC and some of its contractors, which happens to be other credit unions, to do all of that underwriting of the loan. That makes a lot of sense, and we have no conceptual disagreement with that. It's more of how the program will work as it, in the day-to-day functions of it. The first bit, there are a couple highlights. In their resolution that they ask the town to adopt, there is talk about, it says right in it, the municipality funds the district through bonds or any other appropriate financing mechanisms. Bonding for these types of improvements is something that would have to go before the town representatives if you were to raise any money to fund such a program. The program through the VEIC has investors, and I think it's Middlebury National Bank that's put up a large amount for this first round of funding. That money then would flow through to the VEIC. Applications would be made by various homeowners to be part of this program, and then the different projects will be awarded or they're called special assessments, but they're in the nature of a loan to the homeowner.
Can I ask you a question about, have you got more to say about that first thing? Because I wanted to ask you a question about that. Great. Well, I didn't think we were considering at any point the town taking over the program. So I just kind of would like to just put that aside and not have that be part of the conversation, because I don't think that's anything that we would consider doing.
We're not a bank.
Yeah. So if we went along with the Efficiency Vermont program, we're not required by that program or any of those documents to bond anything.
That's correct.
Okay, so then we're not required, even if we sign that document, we're not required to go to the representative town meeting for approval, unless we did decide we wanted to bond and run our own program.
Right. That's
okay,
correct.
so I'm not clear as to why.
Well, what we've asked them.
What's the liability to the town for that document, for that point?
Because with that's just a resolution to adopt the guidelines. The guidelines then go through how this will work. Our objection to the resolution had to do with the fact that the recitation in it is wrong insofar as the town of Brattleboro does not intend to do any bonding. that was, in my view, a simple fix. We could just take out those sentences with regard to that, and we've not gotten that past VEIC at this point.
But even if that
assuming
was-
that
yeah.
we could, or assuming you just signed it with it, then you're down to the program guidelines being adopted. That then gets more into the second issue of how the special assessment will actually work. And here, what John and I have been trying to do is follow the path of the money. The money comes from the investor, the bank, to VEIC, and then we've had conflicting reports as to whether this loan or assessment will be carried on the town books. In our last week's conversation with VEIC, the explanation was that the funds go directly from VEIC to the homeowner. The homeowner consents to a lien being placed on his or her property, making that property subject to a special assessment of the town. Now, special assessment is defined in the statute as a tax. The VEIC doesn't have the authority to tax, only the town can tax. So in our view, we thought that the money needed to come from VEIC to the town to the property owner. Then as the loan gets paid back, it would go from the property owner to the town to VEIC and back up the chain.
Does that document say special assessment?
It does.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and the whole
So, I get
program is set up. In fact, the statute enabling the whole
Right.
PACE program makes it a special assessment,
Okay, I didn't
citing
understand
the
that.
previous section in
Great,
in the
thank you.
statute. So this is where we get into some of the details as far as, a lot of like the community development grants come from the state to the town down,
Right.
whether we loan it or grant it, it
Right.
comes back to us.
And it's a
then back
very
up to the
clear
state.
process that's
That's the
well-established.
way I think, and jump in if you want, John, that we envisioned it going, because what the town is doing and the way the legislature created this is that the town is loaning or lending its enforcement authority through taxing or essentially tax sales to enforce if these folks don't pay these special assessments back. In order to enforce a tax, you have to actually have the tax. There has to be something coming from the town
Right.
to the individual or the property that is gaining some public benefit from the special assessment. That's why we think it needs to flow through the town. And we
Sure.
just don't have those questions answered as to how that gets carried on our books. John's going to be speaking with the auditors, and VEIC has indicated that it would essentially not be carried on our books. All we would do is enforce when they get a payment that's 90 days old, they would come to the town and say, okay, now enforce it. That's where I get into a little bit of, okay, well, if we haven't actually done an assessment or given them a tax bill, how do we just go and do that?
Sell their property for them.
Yeah. So those, we're into the details of it, but we need to get some better answers before, at least myself and I think John, fully recommend this program to the board. Right now, we have reservations on that.
Yep, I don't know about anybody else, that makes sense to me.
So,
Well, go ahead, John.
so Bob, I have a bunch of questions. First, why haven't the other towns picked up on this? I mean, I asked
I've
you.
got to call their attorneys. Some of them are small towns, but there are large towns like Montpelier.
Right.
I have been in touch with Paul Giuliani, though I'm not sure he's Montpelier's city attorney, with regard to the flow of the money on this, because he's also Vermont Bond Counsel. So John and I have had phone conferences with Paul trying to follow this money. In essence, I think he tends to agree with John's view and my view as far as the flow of money, but I can't tell you without checking with their town attorneys, which I will be doing, as to whether they've just signed on or whether they see these as potential problems. The problems will only come when
Somebody
somebody
defaults.
doesn't pay.
Exactly,
Oh,
but,
And so we're.
but you would like to know
there-
a little bit about what we're
Yeah.
gonna do before that happens.
Yeah, there are no
And
loans
if we can.
or special assessments that have been made yet. We're in the first round of the pool of money. People can now make their applications to obtain that money through these special assessments. And that, if there's a good response to that offering, the VEIC will be loaning out that money.
So,
When there is a default, which we, hopefully you never have a default, but there's always
that
there are always
chance.
going to be a few. Then we'll really know how these documents and how the special assessment enforcement by a town holds up. So I don't know if the towns have been thinking what happens in the default without
They should be.
going to their attorney.
So, my next question is there, and I don't know if anybody can answer this or not, but is there a huge demand for this? I mean,
When they came down in the winter, and I think, Kate, you would know her name, Peter Welch's wife, she was in the legislature.
Margaret Cheney.
Yeah, Margaret Cheney came down, and a couple of our local legislators were at the Marlboro Grad
Right.
Center. There must have been 50 or 60 people in the room, contractors, residents, building supply people. There's a great deal of interest.
right, but I'm just wondering if there, if there's residents that are, contractors, and
No, but I
people
mean
like that.
contractors and residents.
That's self,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the questions, and the other question is, why can't these individuals just go to a bank and get a line of credit?
Actually, I'd like to, I kind of wanted to talk about that because, and kind of
Because
try and give a little bit of a sense of urgency about this, because one of the reasons that people can't go is that you have to have
equity.
Yeah, you have to have 20% equity in your home. And for a young family in particular, or somebody of moderate income, they don't have that. And it provides, this grant also dovetails, or this loan, dovetails with some of the subsidies through Efficiency Vermont and through the federal government that help pay for energy audits and all the other things you want to have ahead of time. So there really are some substantial rebates and subsidies that go along with it that make it available to people that otherwise it would not be available to. Not to mention then the long-term fuel savings that those families would have as well. But another part of it is that the first batch of money was $1 million. And that money, for anybody that applies, that money goes directly to local contractors, local building supply companies. It's a very business-friendly kind of an opportunity. And I don't think that there's anything that you're doing that's standing in the way. I think what you're talking about is making sure that the processes are in place and that it fits into, I think, it's something that's consistent with our general way of operating, as you said. And that makes perfect sense to me. I just want to add a little more urgency to it, because it is really, it's a stimulus. It's an economic stimulus for the community. And if we wouldn't get the whole $1 million, but whatever we got would be directly expended into the local economy and provide some opportunities for a lot of families that otherwise wouldn't have it.
What is the time frame? Like, what's,
Well, we need to get some of these matters resolved.
well, that's what I'm saying, like, is there a goal of when to get them resolved, or?
I thought
I hate to put you on the spot.
they
Sure.
were going to open the application, not knowing what really the term is. I wanted to say that, John, didn't they mention early October, but then that got
October
extended?
1st to October 31st, and we're clearly not going to make that deadline,
Yeah.
so
And
we're
I
not
think
going
that
to.
But I thought they
next
may
one
have
is
extended
after the
that.
first of the year.
There was some notion that they were going to extend that, so we may still be in that. Just getting back to your question, John, as far as what equity the underwriters will allow, difference between getting a home equity line of credit and going through the PACE program, you still need to go and fill out the loan applications, have your credit checked, very similar to doing a home equity. If there are any differences as far as what amount of equity you have to have in your home, that's going to be the determination or the credit risk that the credit union that is doing the underwriting will determine in this. The other thing is that the major difference here is that this program, if you sell the property, the assessment runs with the property as compared to with a home equity. If you sold, you would have to pay that off. So there are pros and people see that
Right.
different ways, but that's another
Well, I'm just,
major difference.
I'm glad that you read it and, brought up some concerns that could bite us a little bit, down the road. And I'm,
We want to get it right, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, time will tell whether people just think it's simpler to go get a home equity
Right,
loan
right.
or to go through this program.
Mhm.
I don't think we'll really know that until we see what the turnout is applying for the program.
well, it'll be interesting to see, what the
But
turnout is.
I'll contact the attorneys from some of those other towns that are on the list that have adopted it, see if we can't resolve any issues with VDIC, and John will be talking with the auditors.
Yep. Thank you both.
Right. Does
Thank you.
anyone in the public have any questions? Yes.
I'm sorry, just one quick question. So you both have some reservations about PACE, even though you're attempting to possibly change the language. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think with certain language changes or with different flow of how the money will proceed from
Right.
one entity to another and back up the chain, with those changes, we may be able to erase some of those reservations.
Okay. And so I guess where are we right now with PACE? Like, where would you say?
Right now, the board has not adopted has not made the resolution of adopting the program guidelines. And that would be the next step for the board to take once we get these details.
And the language, is it in those guidelines?
The language is in those guidelines,
okay.
They're essentially 4 documents.
Okay.
But the guidelines, the resolution, there's an interlocal agreement, which is an agreement between the town of Brattleboro and the other towns in the program. And then the program administrator agreement with VDIC as to what VDIC will do and what the town will do. Just very briefly on that, the idea was that the town really wouldn't need to do much administration, but if it does need to flow through the town tax department, then there is a little bit more administration than we had bargained for.
Mhm.
So that's why some of these
Another
details make a big
consideration.
difference as
Yeah.
far as employee time being spent on
Right.
this.
Great. Anyone else have any questions, comments?
Ms. Chairwoman?
You do, John?
No, it's still 1-0 in the bottom of the 8th. Boston's ahead, yes.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John and Bob.
Thank you guys, the other John and Bob, too. Now we're going to move on to a resolution from the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. And I think we have someone here from the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust.
We
Is
do.
it Michelle?
It's Michelle Morris.
You can come right up.
So as the board may recall, earlier this year, Michelle and Connie Snow from Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust came to the board and were seeking a host town to serve as the applicant, municipal applicant to the Vermont Community Development Program. Previously, Wyndham and Windsor had worked with Rockingham, and we're trying to give them a bit of a break and sought the assistance of Brattleboro to serve as the municipal host and to be the applicant to the Vermont Community Development Program. We agreed to do that, and they've developed a grant application for VCDP, which I'm hoping Michelle can talk to us about a little bit. And the purpose of her being here this evening is to ask the board to adopt the attached resolution giving the town the authority to submit the application.
Now, I want to, before you start, I just want to, as full disclosure,
Right.
I am a member of the Community Development Block Grant Board on the state level, and it's the board that, if this application goes forward, it's the board that would either approve or deny the funding. And I was appointed by the governor, so I've worked it out with the governor's office and the Agency of Community Development, Commerce and Community Development, that when it comes to the state level, I will recuse myself. So I can vote here on the local level, but I will.
Otherwise, we couldn't pass it.
Right, so I will recuse myself on that, but that's just a full disclosure.
Okay.
Michelle.
Well, thank you. And I brought a brief program description. I don't know if you've already seen that, but you might not want to read it twice, Kate, but I'll give it to you anyway. So we're hoping to close out the current grant that we're in with Rockingham. We're shooting for end of March, and hoping if this application with Brattleboro is funded to begin at the beginning of April. We are putting in for a 2-year application. We're proposing to rehab 60 homes for low and moderate income residents in Windham and Windsor counties. And we're also proposing a public service of homeownership counseling, sustainable homeownership counseling. So pre-purchase and post-purchase for folks who are either facing foreclosure or mortgage default, or they may have delinquent taxes or delinquent water, sewer, or just, they may come to us for a loan. They may not be strong applicants. The counselors will work with them and, position them so that they can apply for a loan.
Now, how much money are you applying for?
We're applying for $1 million for 2 years.
And just incidentally, so the board knows, John O'Connor was finance director up in Rockingham when this program was operated through the town of Rockingham, and John has some experience working with Windham and Windsor Housing Trust, and in particular with working with them in terms of overseeing this program. John, maybe you could describe a little bit of your experience in terms of how they are to work with.
Patrick, they are excellent to work with. They do a very good job. They manage the money very well. I've been through several audits with them and with the department, the State Department of Community Development, and they have always done very, very well with those audits. And communication with the town was very good. And the town basically, there was very little work involved. We would do the drawdowns of the funds and pass them through to Windham Windsor Housing Trust, but that was essentially it. Their documentation is always very good. And as the grantee, we keep a lot of that documentation on file here, but they are the ones that put all of those materials together, and they've done very well with that.
We get a lot of assistance from the staff at Vermont Community Development Program, a lot of hand-holding to help us do what we need to do.
Yep.
John or Patrick, could you comment about how much administrative time we're likely to require administering $1 million over 2 years?
Really, I think John's experiences probably speaks to this more directly than my own, but not a whole heck of a lot. I mean, Windham and Windsor Housing Trust are quite professional at managing these types of programs, and certainly quite professional at participating with municipalities and things like CDBG loans, such as this. So on our end, John, I wouldn't foresee a whole heck of a lot, but you could probably speak to that a little bit more clearly.
Yeah, my experience has been that it's been very minimal, the involvement. We do process some paperwork, we do some drawdowns, but it's measure it in hours per month at the most, it's very little.
I'm just wondering if there might be a fee opportunity here.
There is.
Revenue generation.
Well, the town can charge a certain amount of administrative, I think a portion of the consolidated audit.
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And hours for town staff time.
So, Michelle, the question I have is, this is primarily for individual homeowners?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not Windham, Windsor rehabbing, they're not rehabbing structures to rent out. This is for...
No, it's...
This is completely separate from...
Completely home ownership. It's run through the home ownership program.
Great.
This is for single-family homeowners. Mm-hmm.
Is it for primarily low income? I guess the question I'm trying to get to, will there be, if some of these happened in the town of Brattleboro, would there be a tax impact on the town?
Oh.
Would there be a discount on the taxes?
Oh, I see. I don't know that there's a discount on the taxes. That I haven't heard of, but Brattleboro is the community where we do the highest volume of loans. I think partly because we're located here, and partly the size of the community, and so the impact is on the built environment.
I think presumably if people are investing into their homes and doing improvements, they're actually, in a very small way, but in a very positive way, making potential improvements to the size of the grand list.
We also require that people be current on their taxes or enter into a payment plan and make payments on that payment plan for 6 months before we're going to give them a loan. So we work with folks who are delinquent on water, sewer, or taxes.
So, and this is I'm just spitballing here. Do you think it'd be wise to have all of us here for this, or do you think that, this vote is, I have no problem either way. I'm just wondering if it's important enough to have all 5 members here or not on something like this. Because none of us were on the board when this was approved in February.
It was February 5th.
So I'm just asking out of curiosity more than anything.
I mean, what I can say is that I did have a conversation with Dave Gartenstein about this, and he didn't seem to have any problem.
Great. No, that's
but I
fine.
don't know how. I mean,
Well, I'm hesitating because I'd like a chance to talk to Russell Rice to find out if there's anything, because I haven't, I really don't know what this is going to be. I can't imagine that we wouldn't approve it.
yeah, well,
And I can't imagine the previous select board would if there was something there. I just don't know enough yet.
Michelle, can I ask you a question? What's the time frame? Are you trying to get this on the November meeting?
We're trying to get it on the November meeting, yes.
And I thought there was a time.
Yeah, because
Yep.
the meeting is November 21st.
Correct.
So Patrick, do you have any advice for us?
You know what? I would approve it.
Well,
This is,
David does.
I understand there is some concern for some of, for the tax impact, but this is a loan program to homeowners to make improvements into their home. In my mind, it is a program worth supporting.
Yeah, I'm
Is that
fine.
okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, does anyone in the public have any comments? John, you look like you're...
No, I was just going to make a motion
Super.
to approve the resolution for VCDP Grant Application Authority.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No?
Would anyone like a program description? Brief description?
I think I have one.
You have one. Okay, from last time.
Great, thank
You
you.
already see it. Okay, great.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, now we're going to move on to a grant for the Washington Street retaining wall. And we have Hannah and Steve coming back.
Back in May, we came before the board to update everyone on the Washington Street wall that has failed. And since that time, Hannah applied for a grant to help fund the rebuilding of that wall. So Hannah's going to update the select board on this project and the grant.
Well, we were very lucky to receive this grant from V-Trans. I know that there may have been some other towns that missed out on this money, and V-Trans was very understanding this was an emergency situation. And so they have given us a grant in the total amount of $183,000 with a 10% match from the town, meaning we will get $164,700 from the state, and we will be responsible for $18,300. We're looking forward to getting this project started hopefully October 28th. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but we've already received some of the block. It's on the corner of Canal and Washington Street, waiting to be installed.
I still don't know how you guys are going to do this. I mean, I walked up
Very
here the other
carefully.
day, and it's...
I'm going to wait till everything freezes.
I'm glad you guys are doing it.
And we're going to act as the general contractor on this project and hire Renault on a time and equipment, manpower kind of basis to help us get the project done. We certainly don't have the resources at the DPW to undertake a project that large by ourselves.
When's it gonna be done? Oh.
We're starting
Partial
October
mass.
28th, and we're anticipating it to take 2 to 3 weeks. I think that's a pretty accurate assessment.
And once we're committed, we get to stay there, and then the hot mix plants, you know, they start to close in mid-November, so that's really a date that, unless there's big paving contracts out there, which there normally isn't, that's what we're trying to beat, the weather.
Anyone on the board have questions?
No.
Anyone out in the public have any questions?
I move we accept and appropriate a grant in the amount of $164,700 from the Vermont, from the Vermont Agency of Transportation to replace the Washington Street retaining wall and sidewalk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
We
Carries
we can't keep them here any longer.
I'll text you the score.
Thank you, guys.
No, I've already got my, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Now we're gonna.
Good night, Hannah.
Now we're gonna move on to a grant application for bulletproof vests for the police department.
Where are they?
Thank you, Kate. The police department's not here this evening. There's a couple of small grants. The next several are sort of small ones, and I think we ought to be able to walk through them. The board is asked to accept and appropriate a grant for $1,556.14. It is a bulletproof vest grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance, and these dollars will be matched dollar for dollar with funds in the capital fund and will assist the police department in acquiring 4 new armored vests or bulletproof vests.
Could somebody answer how they come up with 14 cents? And why they never just round?
Probably
It
Postage.
drives me crazy.
They're just exact.
I know, it just drives me crazy.
It's got to be right to the penny, or John won't.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, John counts pennies.
Yes, he does. Well, I move to accept and appropriate a bulletproof vest grant in the amount of $1,556.14 from the Bureau of Justice Assistance to purchase armored vests.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We have the bulletproof vest grant. Next up, is this the one, Patrick? you
Yeah,
wanna
this
talk
is the
about?
one. Yeah, next up, there is a approve a grant application, and I've asked the board chair to pull this from this evening's meeting. There's a little more work that needs to be done on this particular application before we bring it to the board. So I've asked for us to gingerly walk past that one.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on to the grant
Gingerly.
for the Second Chance grant for the Brattleboro Community Justice Center.
Yes, here we're asking the board to accept and appropriate a supplementary appropriation of $12,500 for the Brattleboro Community Justice Center. This is to support, this is an additional appropriation that the Department of Corrections has made to each of the regional community justice centers. And so this is to further the work that our community justice center is doing in support of offender reentry work. So this is a continuation of an existing grant to BCJC.
Anyone on the board have questions?
No.
Anyone in the public have any questions about this? Would someone like to make a motion?
Move we accept and appropriate a Second Chance grant in the amount of $12,500 from the Vermont Department of Corrections to continue their ongoing offender reentry work.
All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Carries 3-0. Now we're going to move on to the second reading and public hearing for parking meters on Linden Street.
Yes, thank you. We've got a couple of second readings and public hearings to conduct this evening. The first one is for, where are we at here? The first one is for these ones down here. We're talking about Appendix C, Article 3, Section 16-110, off-street areas. We would seek to strike what's listed under 9 and number 10, and I'll just go ahead and read them. Number 9 is on the westerly side of Linden Street, beginning at the sidewalk on the southern side in the northerly direction for 187 feet. And number 10 is on the westerly side of Linden Street, beginning 40 feet from the north side of the crosswalk to a northerly direction for 47 feet. In addition to that, we would ask the board to remove, again, Appendix C, Article 7, Section 16-107, spaces for handicap parking, number 18, which reads, on the westerly side of Linden Street, the first two spaces from the north side of the crosswalk in a northerly direction. And the board will recall the last meeting when we discussed these, this was work the town was doing in conjunction with the Brattleboro Retreat, that we had done some work out there to support their ability to provide space to the state offices as they were relocated. And now that those the relocation is complete and the folks are back in the state office building, as per the agreement we have with the retreat, we're sort of putting things back as we found them.
So pretty much in layman's terms, on Linden Street where there are parking meters across from the retreat, we're taking those parking meters away.
Right.
Is that correct?
And two of the handicap parking spaces as well. So that's the second reading. We need to open a public hearing and then close a public hearing and then conduct a vote.
Okay, I will open the public hearing to deal with the parking meters on Linden Street. Does anyone in the public have any comments?
Oh, hold up, slow down, one at a time.
Anyone on board have any comments?
Nope.
We vote before we close the public hearing?
I think you closed the public hearing.
Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing on the Linden Street parking meters. Would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure, to approve the amendments to Appendix C of the town ordinance as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nope, so it carries 3-0.
We have one additional this evening, and this one relates to limited parking areas on Elliott Street. This is again Appendix C, Article 2, Section 16-101, limited parking areas. I'll go ahead and read it. We are making adjustments to number 9. On the southerly side of Elliott Street from the westerly side of the drive at 138 Elliott Street to the easterly side of the drive at 150 Elliott Street shall be replaced with 148. Parking shall be limited for a period of 20 minutes during the hours of 9 and 6, except on weekends and holidays. And as the board will recall, what's being asked here is that we shorten the length of a span of limited parking, which today extends out beyond a couple of properties where the business activity is being conducted there. Limited parking really kind of works contrary to their needs. So there's a massage therapist there. There, of course, their activities take a little more than an hour. Same thing, there's a ministry out there. Their activities take a little more than an hour. So this parking out in front of their buildings really works sort of contrary to their business interests. And so we're asking that we shorten the limited parking to reflect the revised ordinance here.
I'm going to open the public hearing. Does anyone have any comments, questions?
Once again,
Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
to approve the amendment to Appendix C of the town ordinance as presented. I just read that.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Carries 3-0. Now, Patrick is going to be put in the hot seat. This is, we need to appoint a tax collector, and Patrick will explain why.
Okay.
Because our other one left.
In part because our last one went to Missouri.
The other one went to Missouri.
It is both a statutory function of the position of town manager and a stated function in our charter of the town manager that they serve as collector of delinquent taxes. The town has also, by practice, identified specifically not just a position but the individual, and that has been our past practice for several generations, and so the board is asked to consider myself as the collector of delinquent taxes and to formally appoint me as such.
Well, I think we should
Do
debate
I
this for a while.
By all means.
Bring it on.
It's sort of a thankless task.
It
so.
really is. So,
Could be worse.
who wants to,
Could be worse to go get the dogs.
Oh,
Does
yeah.
somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to appoint interim town manager Patrick Moreland as the collector of delinquent taxes.
Thank you, sir.
All those in favor?
You taxes paid?
Aye.
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 All those opposed? 3-0.
That deserves something right there, buddy.
No drama. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is committee vacancies.
Of which there are several.
And we do have several.
Yep.
Now, I can read them, but we also, are these on the town website or anything
Yes.
too?
I think they are.
Sure they were.
I'm not sure if we do, we certainly could.
Under individual committees.
Okay.
We should read the vacancies.
We do an announcement on a fairly regular basis about committee openings. In fact, we just did one fairly recently. But one of the things we wanted to try and do is bring this up again, in part because we had a recent vacancy in the Energy Committee. The Energy Committee is quite an active committee, and so due to the requirements in our charter to put out notice before we can appoint somebody, if we waited another couple of months, that would mean that the Energy Committee would need to, in effect, sit one person down. And in anticipation of the potential for some interest out there, we thought it might make sense to bring it to the attention of the public and to the board, and to go ahead and put out this type of warning so that we could accept applications according to this timeline, and then potentially fill that vacancy and possibly some of these others.
Okay, why don't I read them so anybody out there listening or watching, these are the boards that are looking for members. The Agriculture Advisory Board, the Arts Committee, the Citizens Police Communications Committee, the Development Review Board needs an alternate, the Energy Committee, the Honor Roll Committee, the Inspector of Lumbers, Shingles, and Wood.
Ooh, I want that one.
Senior Solutions Representative, SEPCA Representative, Town Service Officer, and Tree Advisory Committee. And I think if people do have questions about those, as Jan says, you can go on the website and find out about any of the committees. It doesn't say here if we need them, if
Well,
you
we're
want
voting on them.
Well, if we want to fill the vacancies by November 5th, what is the date, Jan, that you need them to be?
November 4th.
No, the Thursday before,
So
so
it
we
would
can put them
be
in your packets.
October 31st. So anyone interested in applying?
Or we could even give them more time to apply.
You mean put it out till the second meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to do it that way, you
That's-
could. You
makes
could
more sense.
You could hold off to the 15th, and means
that's
you
coming
could
up
accept
quickly.
applications up until the 12th.
Could we also, if some came in ahead of time, accept some on the 5th and some?
No, because they're appointed by the select board.
That's what I, yeah, that's what I meant.
Well, then
Couldn't
somebody,
do.
well, we'd have to
We
say
only have
one
one
committee.
vacancy. On the Energy Committee, we only have one vacancy, so if we put a deadline before they have an opportunity.
Gotcha.
Right, so you're saying what we should do is vote on these on the November 19th meeting?
There would only be one meeting, one Energy Committee meeting between now and then that would be missed.
Okay, so,
But by a particular member, but there's a full committee
okay,
that
but
can
what we're
still
saying
function.
now is if we're going to vote on this on the November 19th meeting, we give people until the 14th?
14th, correct.
14th.
Yes.
November 14th at
Yes.
5 PM, people need to get their applications into the town manager's office.
That's correct.
Okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
Certainly
Sounds
does.
very nicely done.
Okay. Now, we are going to approve or consider approving a petition in order for pole and wire on Black Mountain.
Right, this is a petition of the town by Fairpoint Communications to move to move one of their poles. And so typically when, it's a statutory requirement that the select board be asked if they're operating in our right-of-way to seek the approval of the Board of Selectmen. Typically, when Fairpoint comes to us seeking to either place a cabinet or move a pole, what we do is we dispatch Gary King, who's our engineer tech, and he goes out and looks at the situation and determines whether this is going to be problematic for the town and the public, or whether this is just a simple change. And in his view, this is just a simple change, and we would ask the board to go ahead and approve this petition.
Does anyone on the board have questions?
Not a one.
No? Anyone out in the public? No? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move we approve the petition and orders for pole and wire locations from Telephone Operating Company of Vermont, Fairpoint Communications, as presented.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? 3-0, the motion carries. Now we're to the end.
My only friend.
Yes, but who wants to read the Brattleboro calendar this week? John?
I read it last week.
I'll do it this week. On Wednesday, October 16th, from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., the Planning Commission is meeting in the Select Board meeting room. Friday, October 18th, 4 to 4:45, the Town Manager Search Citizens Committee meeting will be held in executive session in the Select Board meeting room. And from 5 to 6:30 p.m., there will be a special Select Board meeting in the Select Board meeting room. Monday, October 21st at 5:15, the Skating Rink Committee meeting at the Nelson Withington Skating Facility. At 6 p.m., the Rec and Parks Board meeting at the Gibson Aiken Center. And at 7 p.m., the Development Review Board in the Select Board meeting room. Tuesday, October 22nd, 8:30 a.m., the Traffic Safety Committee meeting in the Select Board meeting room. 4:30 p.m., the Finance Committee in the Select Board meeting room. 5:15, the Conservation Committee in the Hannah Cosman room. Thursday, October 24th, 4 p.m., the Police Fire Facility Building Committee in the Hannah Cosman meeting room. 4 p.m., the Town Manager Search Citizen Committee will meet in executive session, again in the Select Board meeting room. And at 5 p.m., a special Select Board meeting in the Select Board meeting room. Monday, October 28th, 5:30 p.m., the CPCC, the Civilian Police Communications Committee, Citizens Police Communications Committee will meet in the Brooks Memorial Library Community Room.
All right.
And as a final one?
And there's another page. There's
Oh.
another page.
We're not done yet, John.
No.
Thank you, Jan. On Monday, November 4th, 5 p.m., the Energy Committee meeting in the Hannah Cosman room. 5:15, the West River Park Committee meeting in the Gibson Aiken Conference Room. And on Tuesday, November 5th, 6:15 p.m., Select Board meeting in the Select Board meeting room.
And the Red Sox won.
Yep.
He's Howie.
There it is.
It's official.
It's official. So I move to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Now, before you go,
Oh,
Go Red Sox.
3 to sign.
Thank you, BCTV.
thank you, everybody. Thank you, Olga, for staying.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for our sign language.
For our sign.
interpreter.